my friends, and welcome back to this new episode of RetroGaming with Edgar Rivera. Last time I did review, well, obviously the game is Dr. Mario. Of course, if you haven't checked out the game, the video, click on the notification card if you see how you haven't seen it. Well, today I'm going to review another classic from Capcom. And you might wonder why Street Fighter 2 is in the background. Well, that's because we got our references, since the game was originally an arcade game for the CPS-1 and ported to the Super Nintendo, just like Street Fighter 2, as you see in the background. By the way, I did a video of Street Fighter 2 a long time ago on the channel, about a year ago. So if you want to see it, though the video is in Spanish. And if you want to see it, well, check out the video. Also, click on the notification if you want to see it. Anyway, this is the game I'm gonna review. This one, SQUADRON. Though that's what they name it here in in North America at least. In Japan, the original name is Area 88. Which is based on a manga in Japan. Yep, this game is based on a manga on Japan. You play as Shin, which is a Japanese fighter pilot, which made a contract to defeat the mercenaries in a place called verison. Well, fictitiously, of course. That's in the manga, of course. You have to fight there and defeat other mercenaries with the help of two other mercenary pilots. Mickey Simon, a US firefighter for North America, a former, who fights during the era of the Vietnam War, all that kind of stuff, and he's a North American pilot. He used the famous Tomcat, and of course his buddy, Mr. Greg Gates, which was for Hungary, from Europe. He flies the Thunderbolt. So Shin, what it tries to do is to try to earn money, break the contract, and get released from Area 88. So that's the manga. If you want to know more about the manga and the anime series, please check out Johnny's Millennium video from Happy Console Gamer. The link is down in the description, or you can click on the notification card you see up here for more information about the manga and the anime, which it was an OV episode for 1985 and then 2004. I much prefer the 1985 one because it's an old classic anime series, although it was a manga like anyone else. So it's based on this game, based on a manga, and of course, naturally, it's gonna call Area 88. That's what's supposed to be in Japan. And then Capcom decided, well, we want to make a shooter, an horizontal shooter. Now Capcom did make some shooters, both 1942, 1943, and Battle of the Midway. No, I'm sorry, 1943 Battle of the Midway. That was the game that released. Those are the early ones that released from the 1940 series. And they want to make it similar to that, but a lot more modern. And that's why they chose Area 88 as an example. Obviously, they can't call it that in the United States, so they chose the name to SQUADRON. Now, a lot of people don't know that this is a base anime series. In fact, I have to tell all of my buddies that this game is based on an anime, in a manga, in Japan. And they're like, I never heard of it. And I have to tell the story because it is fascinating that a Capcom grab an anime series, or a manga, to a game. Well, that's not the first they did this. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is one of those as well. They're the same thing. So it's not new that they grab from manga style or anime and turn it into a game. That happens a lot on most companies. Well, this game is no exception. Obviously, you play as Shin in the arcade version, but also you can choose Mikey and Gates. Either of those three. And my preference, I chose Mikey because the game works like this. Shin is balanced. And Mikey is a lot more powerful. He has the most powerful weapons, but there's a trade-off. He doesn't support a lot of damage. You pretty much lose a lot of damage a lot. As a result, he's the hardest mode in my opinion, the hard mode in this game. Engage, it's on. It doesn't have powerful weapons like Mikey, but it's like an armor type. He can handle more damage. That means you can handle much longer. As a result, but in my case, I use Mickey because it's a lot more powerful, not at the expense of less armor type, which is this game what it is. So you can choose in the arcade version. You can choose each pilot had their own planes. For example, Shin used the Tigershark, Mikey used the Tomcat, and Gates used the Thunderbolt. As a result, and you complete each mission linear, of course. The bosses are ridiculously hard. The game is brutally hard. As a result, it's kind of the same feeling as Gradius by Konami, of course, which, by the way, I did review a couple. Actually, which is the only shooter, believe it or not, the only shooter I review in this channel. So, if you haven't seen it, click on the notification card. Just case. Back on track. And yeah, so you play the game and you defeat the bosses, the airplanes, try not to get shot down by the enemy, and that's it. Simple. Well, the SNES version, they had to make a little more rewarding rather than just linear. So they used the same pilots, as I mentioned, Shin and Balance. Mikey's more powerful weapons, but you had at the expansion of receive more damage. Greg has less powerful weapons, but to compensate, you had armor type airplanes. You handle more damage. As a result, the airplanes, well, no longer the same. You have to stuck with the same as they chose. Instead, you can choose random inputs, but my God, they're very expensive. You have to earn money to get them. Each one. You start with the Crusher or the. I'll put the model of an airplane. If you notice. So we start with that airplane, which doesn't have any stuff in it, and then you can buy each one of them. The last airplane, the model, is the most powerful, but you get it at the last game. Assuming you can beat it, as a result. The bosses are insanely hard, and you have to be extremely quick, and it has a quick reflexes. So this game, it can be brutal sometimes. Typical in Capcom, of course. So yeah, and of course you have to defeat each boss in each enemy. And to the end, in the same arcade version, you beat each boss. However, there's a bit difference on the arcade version. The arcade obviously is linear. Well, in this one, you can choose whatever you want. However, there's 3 enemies. 3 airplanes you have to defeat first. You have 3 airplanes. One's a mercenaries, the other is a bomber stealth airplane, and the other is a submarine. Well, if one of those 3 gets to the area base, you have to force to defeat them first, then they move to the area you want to go next. So that's how the game works, of course. And it takes quite a while to level up. And yes, you do a level up in this game, up to level 5, of course. So you got full max, your weapon is extremely powerful, you can defeat the enemies much quicker and defeat the bosses much faster as a result. So you level up the weapon, the powerful you can get. Especially with Mikey, which has the most powerful weapon. He's the fastest when it grows about the weapons. In case of Grid, you receive more health, more armor type in this case. Well, Shin is balanced, of course, as I mentioned before. So you can choose either of those 3, whatever you prefer. So that's what the game is. It's based on an anime, a manga, and you find out it's an amazing shooter. But if you want more stylistic, more defined, check out Jeremy Parrish video. The link's down below, and you can watch him. He has more to tell about this game. And believe it or not, this is the second Capcom game released for the SNES as well released. Because the first Konami game release was Capcom. I always confuse myself. Forget about it. Capcom released Final Fight first. Gotta be honest, I was never been a fan of the North America release of Final Fight. I hated it because they changed the women to a bunch of dudes that doesn't make any sense just to prevent it. It's just my rant on Final Fight, the SNES version. So that's why I prefer the Japanese version. Anyways, and the Final Fight port on the SNES, it's okay, but once again, that's my only complaint. That changed some of the assets. Some complain about the missing of Guy. With me, I don't mind too much because I always found Guy on Final Fight as the weaker one. He's the fastest, but he's the weakest of the bunch. I chose higher, I chose the strongest and the more juggernaut because I prefer strength over speed. And in the beat 'em ups, or brawlers as most people call it, as a result. So after Final Fight, well, it's all very well, but in comparison to Regional Rage, well, not looking good for Capcom and its Nintendo, since Sega had the advantage. So they had to move on and try other IPs. So that's why US Squadron came in, or Area 88 for Japan. So this is the second game released for the Super Nintendo in 1991. Although the game came out in 1989, it came out 2 years prior for the CPS-1. Then released for the SNES in 1991 as the second standalone release game for Capcom, of course. After that, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and then later you see behind me Street Fighter 2. As a result, it's because Konami. Why the hell I say Konami all the time? Capcom released a bunch of games for some ports of the arcade version, and like I mentioned before, the Capcom obviously made this game. Obviously it's a shooter released for. It will begin as an arcade, like I mentioned, then released as an SNES port. Though it was released multiple ports, but those are on computers. But to me, the SNES is the one is a straight up port of the arcade version. While the other is more like niche version, but not as close as the arcade version. That was the SNES who did the trick first, obviously. And so believe it or not, this game was developed by some guy, Oshiroshi. We'll put the name, I will see it in the description, you can see it. So he made what was the director, of course. Believe it or not, it was from Konami, of course. He come from Konami making the game Gyros, well, co-developed. But then he moved to Capcom making some other games, of course. Well, this is one of them, on the arcade, of course. And then released Willow, well, not the movie, but the arcade version, and others. So he tried to make it more interesting and make it more appealing to the audience. Because this game, remember, this is based on the manga, of course. As a result, because he thought it was too niche, so he made it more appealing for the masses, for the community, of course. And it did pretty well sincerely. Obviously, it's nowhere near as let's say successful in sales like Gradius and others, because Gradius was more recognizable, of course. But it's still this is still a cult classic, and a great game. I recommend it. So the arcade version obviously is the same. Obviously is linear. This one you can choose whatever you want, of course. And I'm gonna show the gameplay real quick. Although it's quite long, I will say it's quite long because I was really digging at the game a lot. I tried to make a shorter, but like no, I don't want to short it. I want to see the people my own gameplay of myself. Being able to play it, and yes, I play in normal mode. I was planning to do a hard mode, but unfortunately it will take too long to video. Plus, that will make more like a gameplay at this point. As a result, I put it on normal as a result. Because normally I used to be good at this game, but over the years I've become rusty at it as a result. So, anyways, I hope you get it. Without further ado, let's go to the gameplay. I hope you enjoyed this video of US Squadron, aka Era 88. It's still a cool classic, a legendary masterpiece for the Super Nintendo. It's one of the best, if not one of the best shooters for the Super Nintendo. If you haven't picked up this game, what are you waiting for? Obviously, if you're interested in the manga or anime, well, I recommend just go to Johnny Millennium's Happy Cosplay Gaming video, since he explained more, or for more detail, just go with Jeremy Parrish, as I mentioned before, is as well a video of a channel that I watched lately, but I don't remember the name, but I'll put the name of the channel. That was the channel he explained the differences between the SNES and NES and the computer games that I mentioned before in the video. You will find them more interesting, of course. And all I can say that the game is a masterpiece. It's awesome and I highly recommend it. It is one of the few hidden gems of the console, of course. In my opinion, since most people don't remember this game very well, they usually remember Gradius or Super Arcade, but not that one as a result. And it's great to see that Capcom, when just making ports, they're making unique games, of course. Obviously, it's not one of those who sell well like Mega Man X or Street Fighter 2 you see behind me. And very simple, really, as a result. And after US Squadron, well, they're still making shooters from the 1940 series, such as 1940XX and 1942 Kai for the CPS2 hardware. And they're still making them. The last game I played of the shooters by Capcom is called Giga Wing. That was for the, obviously it's an arcade game, CPS2, but it was also released on the Dreamcast. So that was the last shooter that I played from Capcom, of course, that I remember that. And since then, Capcom didn't bother to make shooters. I believe I'll put the last thing they made on shooters, since Capcom used to make a lot of unique games, but then they decided to flat out, of course. They're still around, but not as much popular anymore as a result. And that's about it, I will tell, my friend. If you like the video, well, give it a like. If you wanna support the channel, you can subscribe and see what it is, since I have other videos in my catalog if you wanna decide to watch. If you wanna follow me on social media, I'll put this fresh, beautiful letters. You see the figure right there, see that? And you can follow me on one of those. And that's about it. All I can tell is, game on. And anyways, hope you enjoyed this video, and see you next time. Take care and have a good day.